I have kept sometimes late. Over the last 2 weeks, I have kept sometimes late into the night thinking about the young people of our nation. Because I am one person who did not get a job until I was elected as a member of parliament. And I know what it means not to have a job, not to have an income. I am willing to put my career on the line to see to it that, to the extent that I can, young people have an income. All these MPs, they are elected by us, the people of Kenya. And there is, you all admit, there is a lot of money spent in electing people. That's the real challenge that we have. So people are not elected largely on account of what it is that they will do. People are elected because they are well-resourced, you know. And unfortunately, this is the product we end up with, you know. This is the product we end up with. So this is something we must interrogate together, because we get the leaders we elect, right? So these are the people. I did not elect all these members of parliament or the other people. Maybe the ones I have appointed, those ones I can take account, you know, and deal with. And we should, because even in my own eyes, it is not right. People, you know, flaunting money, you know, people using the space in pulpits to, you know, prosecute politics. And all that is fine. And that is why I'm very happy with this moment, that we are all of us going to face up to this reality and call ourselves to order and do that which we must do. And the conversation that was around here, I met the church, some of the church leaders, I met even my own PG, and even them, they were saying, yes, let us abolish Harambes. Yes, let's do something about our situation. We must live within our means. Sons and daughters, let me tell you that I value what you do. I have heard what you have said. I have seen what you have done. And you have made recommendations. Some I will outright implement, on cutting down on government legacies and cutting down on offices that we can. I will deal with some of the issues that you have raised. You have given me some difficult choices. I will suggest to you how we can together go about the difficult choices that you have put on the table on some of the issues. But I want to promise you that in the engagement that we're going to have, God willing, in the next couple of days, I think we've agreed with some of your colleagues here that maybe Thursday, Friday, I will be thoroughly clear, and I want you to be equally clear on what you think on how to take our country forward. My request to you is that we have a country to keep. It's the only home we have. We must do whatever it is that we do within the parameters of the law, respecting one another, and talking to each other with respect so that we can move forward together as a country. I am looking forward to this engagement in the space that you will recommend. I'm told X is the space that you want us to engage. And I have committed that I will find myself into that space. I will ask one of you guys in that space to host us so that we can have this conversation. as I do what I must do to get the country moving forward.
There are Kenyans, Your Excellency, right now who do not listen to all that.
Yes.
They are not interested in that.
That's okay, but that's the reality.
But I need
if you are not, if you do not want to listen to
reality,
Your
Excellency, hang on, Your Excellency, because I need you to address a very important issue here, and that is one of a trust deficit. There are Kenyans who watch you, Your Excellency, and I don't know whether you are aware that they don't trust what you say. They don't believe what you say. Are you aware, Your Excellency, for example, that a lot of Kenyans increasingly don't associate the truth with you?
That is your assessment, because you have never associated the truth with me from the beginning.
No, there's quite a number of Kenyans.
No, I mean, that is your
We asked people before we came here this evening.
Assessment.
Yeah.
And many of those that responded to me directly, and to even our platforms, on KTN News, on Spice FM, on NTV, on Citizen, and we were asking them, what question should we ask the president this evening? And the one thing that many of them were saying is, when will he stop lying? So it's not Linus.
Can he tell us the truth this time?
Let me say the following. I told the people of Kenya that I would reduce the prices of fertilizer from 7,000 to 2,500. I don't know how that is a lie, because they buy it at 2,500.
Okay.
I told the people of Kenya we're going to have a housing program. A housing program is underway in Kenya. I can tell you, Linus, that whether you believe me or not, facts will not change.
Yeah.
Facts are not changed by who says it.
And allow me to step back a bit, Your Excellency.
Facts are very stubborn.
Allow me to step back a bit.
Yes.
And what I'll do is we'll play clips, just a little combination of clips of yourself speaking not too long ago, and I want us to listen to that. I'll stand out of the way because you said it's me that doesn't share the truth with you, and I would like you to respond to yourself, to the clips that we're going to play.
But you see, Linus.
Let's watch that, Your Excellency.
I think, Linus,
yeah.
You don't bring clips that are in a biased way. You select maybe something that has not happened. Yeah. Can you be fair and select clips across the board? What I said and has been done, and what I said and maybe has not been done.
So let's watch that. Maybe you can watch that.
Waeleza ya kwamba these people don't understand the damage they are doing to the people and the economy of Kenya. Kwa hii taxes wanaongeza usiku na mchana. Na mimi nataka niwaulize watu wa hapa Manga, tafadhali, mkiona tumesimama hapa mbele yenu, tunawaambia ya kwamba tutengeneze hiyo serikali inakuja ambayo inaelewa lugha ya mwananchi wa kawaida.
If you have good ideas, why do you need the police? Why do you need blackmail? Why do you need intimidation? If you have better ideas, sell them to the people of Kenya. There are enough intelligent people in Kenya to differentiate what is good from what is better and what is best.
Ni jambo mbaya sana kama tutatumia askari polisi kuumiza wananchi wasio na hatia, eti kwa sababu wako na maoni tofauti ya kisiasa.
Waeleza ya kwamba
I agree with that. It is not fair to use the police to harass citizens who have a contrary opinion. And that is perfect.
That's what they're accusing you of.
I still believe that.
That's what they're accusing you of.
But you don't tell me
Alfred
that... What is the problem with Alfred Keter?
Yeah.
Alfred Keter, no, it's not a contrary opinion. I mean, the police have said why they arrested him. It is not because of me. I didn't give any instructions. I didn't even know what was going on. Let me tell you, Linus, I am a very clear-minded person on what I say. When it is the police, I have said, many of the people who opposed me, many of the people who were very scared about what I would do when I become president, even the people who did worse things against me, I have never gone after them because I don't believe in settling political scores using the power of state or using the police. Let me also say the following. When I talked about the taxes that I was
On the campaign trail, yes.
I was addressing in the campaign trail, it was very obvious that when at that time we were in subsidies, that did not make sense. It is because I removed the subsidies and I changed and put production support. That is why today the price of unga has come down from 240 to 100, because I changed the model. I changed the configuration, and it is giving us results.
Kenya's President William Ruto has condemned the storming of Parliament as a threat to national security and vowed to restore order. Thousands marched on the building in the capital, Nairobi, in protest at tax increases. Demonstrators broke into the chamber and several people were shot dead during violent clashes with security forces. Other national leaders have called for calm.
It was the deadliest day of the protests so far and the most direct assault on Kenya's government in decades. After several failed attempts, thousands of protesters finally reached Parliament. They forced their way inside, ransacked the building and set part of it on fire. Lawmakers who had voted to raise taxes fled through underground tunnels as police deployed tear gas, water cannon and live ammunition, killing several people and wounding dozens more. In a national address, Kenya's President William Ruto condemned the protests.
I assure Kenyans that we shall provide a full, effective, and expeditious response to today's treasonous events.
Ruto made no mention of the bill that had prompted the rage. The largely young protesters say the tax hikes will increase the cost of essential products and services, crippling them economically. In response to the original outcry, the government had already scrapped several planned increases, including those on basic foodstuffs like bread and oil. But for the protesters, the concessions weren't enough. They say the government should plug its €2.5 billion deficit by reducing spending instead. And they vowed to punish William Ruto.
I don't want him as my president. I even regret why I voted him. Yes, he must go. This finance bill, we are not amending. We are rejecting everything. We withdraw it.
They buy cars. They're just enriching themselves. Meanwhile, many percentage of Kenyans are languishing in poverty still. We have people who do not have access to education, who do not have access to health care.
And I want to tell this government, we gave you the entry, we are going to show you the exit. Mr. President, watch us.
Ruto now has 2 weeks to sign the finance bill into law.
DW's Felix Moringa is in Nairobi and has been following the protests on the streets today.
This road where I am standing is a road that on normal occasions would be flowing with traffic. But as you can see, what happened today is that protesters barricaded roads. This is one of the main roads leading into the central business district. Shops were closed for the better part of the day, and protesters kept pushing towards Parliament. Now, there was a tussle between protesters and police. A number of protesters were injured. Emergency services were able to attend to some of the injured protesters, but some of the protesters lost their lives. And one of the protesters who lost his life is a brother to a policeman. So the policeman was just there crying next to the body of the brother, and he was saying that the same force that he works for is the same force that has now killed his brother. So it was a sad day, sad faces, but Kenyans kept pushing, and some of the protesters actually managed to get into Parliament buildings. Now, the action in Parliament was crazy because a part of Parliament was put on fire, but the fire was immediately put out by the staff at Parliament buildings, and the members of parliament had to scamper for safety. They had to run under the underground tunnels that lead to parliament. Some of them have actually just been taken up by choppers that were landing on top of Kenyatta International Conference Center. Now, the amount of destruction that has taken place today has been crazy. Just behind us, there is a police vehicle, one of the police vehicles that were actually burnt today. Next to Parliament, there was another police truck that was burnt, and a number of establishments actually caught fire. There was a lot of destruction. People were removing the roadside barricades, and all of that was protesters expressing their anger at mismanagement of funds by Parliament, runaway corruption, and other ills that have been threatening the welfare of the young people.
And DW Kenya correspondent Edith Kimani happens to be here in Berlin and joins me now in the studio for more. Edith, you have been following what's been going on in Nairobi, but across the entire country. What can you tell us?
Well, today we're seeing what is the third of such protests in a period of 2 weeks, and they're expected to continue throughout the week. As you mentioned, they are protests against this legislation that essentially determines how the government collects money and spends it. And young people having investigated this bill saying that they don't like what they're seeing. The taxes are too intense. They absolutely cannot handle it. And with no other resort, they went to the streets.
Mm-hmm. Now, we are hearing reports of the internet services being disrupted. We're actually having quite some trouble getting through to your colleague, Felix, who's been covering it on the ground. Is that a common tactic during protests in Kenya?
Absolutely not. In fact, it would be unprecedented if, in fact, the government has shut down the internet. And this is really rare because in Africa in 2022, at least 7 governments shut down the internet. Kenya was not one of those. And President Ruto just last year, while talking about this issue, said, and I'm just going to quote him here, that shutting down the internet would be against the law, it would be against the constitution, and an act of sabotage that would undermine the will of the people. And so if he does indeed shut down the internet, it would not only be all these things that he proclaimed, but it will also be going against his own word.
Concern at home and abroad, many reactions. Which ones maybe stuck out to you?
There's a reinvigoration we're seeing of what is now a very contracted opposition in Kenya. It almost doesn't exist. And with the protesters coming out, these young, youthful protesters, we are seeing those members of parliament coming back up and saying we need to take back our country. But also skilled professionals who are drawn from different sectors, lawyers who've come together to bail people out, doctors who are offering their services for those who've been injured during the protest. We're even seeing the church and the mosque offering people a safe haven when the protests get violent. However, on the other hand, these members of parliament, who the young people are speaking to, seem to be completely tone deaf. You know, they're saying that no matter what, it doesn't matter how long you're on the streets, we will go ahead and pass this bill.
Mm-hmm. Who are the people out on the streets?
Young people, and this is really the majority of Kenya. We're talking 60% of the population who are identified as either Gen Z or millennials. So you can understand that this is a country of essentially teenagers. These taxes are going to affect their parents, true, but it's them who will really feel the pinch. And they're going to continue feeling the pinch in the future. And that's why we're seeing them coming out in a way that has never been seen before in Kenya.
But why is the government not listening? Because these protests, they didn't start today. They've been going on for a while.
Because the government has done this before and gotten away with it. This is not the first financial bill under Ruto's government. Last year, he did pass a bill that increased the housing levy. Kenyans complained about that. That didn't go anywhere. On top of that, he also increased the personnel pay for basically people who are in government, which really angered a lot of youthful Kenyans. And so this year, it looks like there was going to be a repeat of last year, but the Kenyans have said, no, not on our watch.
Where do you see this going today? Of course, very violent scenes. Is this going to keep escalating?
If we follow what is being said online, then it will, at least until Thursday. So they're being called the 7 days of rage. And today we're on day 5, which was occupying parliament, which the young people have successfully done. Tomorrow, they intend to go to the police service and demand justice for the people who were killed during these protests, as well as bail out those who've been arrested. And on Thursday, they're calling for a total shutdown of Kenya. Making sure all roads leading to the capital are blocked, having people not show up at work and literally ground the economy to a halt.
How do you think the government is going to respond?
We're waiting to see, because the president has actually called for a press briefing in the next hour. So we wait to see what he says. There's a lot of speculation that perhaps he's going to call a state of emergency, but of course, these are all just rumors. However, what we do know is that the president said he will not pass this bill into law.
DW Kenya correspondent Edith Kimani, such a pleasure having you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We begin in Kenya, where the country's president, William Ruto, has announced the withdrawal of a controversial finance bill after sustained protests against the legislation. Now, police opened fire at demonstrators who stormed the parliament building and burned government offices. At least 22 people died in the protests. The mostly young protesters were angry with the proposed tax hikes. Our correspondent Felix Maringa reports from Nairobi.
Kenya's youth are mourning their fallen heroes. Even Kenya's parliamentarians have come to pay their last respects. The struggle goes on and on, they sing. Another protester, Rex Masai, died a week earlier from a live round, allegedly fired by the police. The streets of Nairobi, now renamed in his honor. Anger boiling over in the Kenyan capital. After weeks of largely peaceful protests, clashes erupted between police and the young people, demanding that the government scraps its controversial tax bill.
The young people are tired. They've seen their time has come and there's bad governance, and our tax is being used wastefully. They take our taxes, but we can't see where the money goes.
We are experiencing challenges as youth. We're having competence in terms of papers and everything, and we can't get jobs.
For these protests, we have two main agendas: reject the bill, impeach Ruto, and then we'll talk about revolutionizing the government. But for now, rejecting that bill.
As MPs were passing an amended version of the bill, protesters had broken into the Kenyan parliament. They set parts of the building on fire, forcing parliamentarians to run for safety.
The young protesters have been able to bring down the parliamentary wall. They got to parliament, ran away with the Senate Speaker's mace, and some of them got to lose their lives.
There are conflicting reports about the exact number of deaths. Hundreds of young people are injured. Public anger like this is a big change in Kenya, where demonstrations have traditionally been led by political parties. Loyal Omondi learned about the protests on social media. Young people like him have been a driving force in these protests.
There's unity in numbers. Nobody paid us. There's no leader. There's nobody that paid for anything, not even a bottle of water to come outside. We're outside because of our own free will.
These protesters sing the national anthem, as if to say they are not leaving the streets. Having reclaimed the national narrative, for Ruto and his government, the withdrawal of the bill is a huge climb down and a huge risk. It's unclear if that's enough to win over this new political force.
The Kenyan president, who had earlier defied the protesters' call to reject the bill, backpedaled on his position, saying he now wants to work together with his citizens.
Listening keenly to the people of Kenya, who have said loudly that they want nothing to do with this Finance Bill 2024, I concede, and therefore I will not sign the 2024 Finance Bill, and it shall subsequently be withdrawn.
And we can bring in Hussein Khalid, who is Executive Director of Haki Africa, a Kenyan civil society organization. He joins us now from Nairobi. So, Hussein, Ruto has said the finance bill is history. This means the protesters have won, haven't they?
Not quite sure the protesters have won because we've lost lives. Hundreds actually are injured. It wasn't really about winning, but more about, standing up for justice, standing up for the country, standing up for the resources of this nation. So while it's a big step forward, but the struggle continues.
Right. The struggle continues. And indeed, the president spoke about having a bipartisan approach as the country moves forward. But the protesters, as we've clearly seen, do not come from any political party. So how will their voices be represented in the process?
Very true. This particular effort has been a multi-tribal, multi-tribes, multi-ethnic, multi-religious youth from all over, extremely organic. And I believe that as a youth, there will definitely be opportunities for each and every corner of the country to be heard. There are very many ways you can get the views of the youth. We could have county dialogue forums. We could have, sectoral youth dialogue forums. So there are many avenues. But what's important is that the voices of the youth, the voices of the masses must be heard. Never again will we allow our country to go back to such kinds of parliament-only debates and discussions. And we look forward to, ensuring each and every person participates in this particular process.
So speaking about a multilateral process, the President Ruto did say, or rather together with Parliament, tried to use the military to suppress the protests. And then we saw the judiciary restrict that. What does this mean for Kenya's institutions and its democracy?
I think, first of all, it shows that as a country, we have our priorities wrong. Clearly, you can't be deploying the military. And then at the same time, during the same week, you are deploying police officers to another country. I mean, why deploy the military and send our police officers to another country? It doesn't make sense. But it also means that our judiciary, the institutions mandated by the Constitution to deliver on their mandates, are actually steadfast. They have stood firmly with the people of Kenya, and they have defended the Constitution. At no time should the executive deploy the military without the Parliament's approval. And the judiciary announced itself on that position. And this shows that, there is independence. We're still not yet at the ideal situation, but definitely we must acknowledge and appreciate the positive steps that we are making as a country in moving forward.
And speaking of the police service, at the start of the week, you tried to speak to the police about detained protesters, and then you were held yourself. Now, is this just one example of how the government can weaponize the police service against democratic processes?
Indeed, I think we have made huge strides in ensuring independence of our various institutions in the country. But unfortunately, the police still remain, a tool for use by the executive. The police have refused to change. The police remain largely a political tool to be used and misused by politicians. And we feel that, more effort, particularly in the dialogue that hopefully will be done in an open and transparent manner, the police have to be put in check. We are very clear. We are calling on the Inspector General of Police to resign from his position. He has shown that he's inefficient, incompetent in dealing with these kinds of issues in Kenya. And, moving forward, the spotlight is on the police.
So you want the Inspector General and the leadership of the police to resign, but the young protesters want the president to go. So he's met one of their demands, but how safe is he?
Well, as the young protesters said, the bone of contention was the finance bill, and the taxes they were just crazy. Yes, well, clearly, the president is in a worse situation than he has ever been. The jury is out on his leadership. And we feel that the time has come for us to ask questions. I think 5 years is very far ahead. But all the same, it's Kenyans who will decide the fate of the president because, we are all governed by the Constitution. At no time have we, asked for anything other than respect of the Constitution. We recognize that he's in office as an elected leader, but as Kenyans have spoken loudly, the next few days will be crucial in determining the way forward.
Hussein Khalid, Executive Director of Haki Africa, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.